You're listening to the Multiverse Fan Cast, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network.
All right then, on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiverse Fan Cast. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you guys get your podcast. You can also find more of our content on our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you'll find links to not only this show, but our other shows like Cinematic Adventures and MF Uncensored. You'll also find links to our reviews, our articles, our Misfit Faction store, and much, much more. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul. With me in the studio today is Ronnie. Ronnie, how are you today?
I'm doing well, sir. How about you?
I'm doing all right. And Rob. Rob, how are you today?
I think this is the most caffeinated and speedy I've ever heard you say that intro.
Because I'm done with both of you already, and we haven't even started. But
I haven't even done anything.
We've done so much, and yet we haven't been recording.
Thank God. Probably for legal reasons. But anyway, we are here to talk about the latest in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, their latest Disney Plus series, Miss Marvel.
Ms.
Marvel.
No, it's Ms. M-S period. Ms. Marvel.
Miss Marvel. And I'm only going like that because that's how they pronounced it in
That's
the
true. At the
show.
end, they did say that.
Eat a butt. But anyway, so we are here to talk about Disney's latest foray into not only their the MCU, but also their Disney Plus original programming. And spoiler alert, we are probably a little skewed in the studio. If you've been following along on the MisfitFaction.com, you obviously know Rob's thoughts. They're totally non-biased because it's a Marvel movie. And then if you know Ronnie, you know his thoughts are the opposite because it's a Marvel movie. There's no what? How did I become the in-between?
Oh.
All right, I'm going to edit that out. That was weird. But so yeah, before we get started, we aren't going to do any news today just because we are recording this in advance due to some scheduling conflicts over the next couple of weeks. So no news this episode, and probably for one of our other episodes when we do The Boys. But we also have, if you guys haven't heard already, our Thor Love and Thunder at the time of this release is out, and we're not going to be talking too much about that, but initial thoughts. And by the way, full spoilers. We are going full spoiler train on this one. Train's left the station. And so if you haven't watched Miss Marvel yet, make sure you guys do that before you listen to the podcast about Miss Marvel. It's in the description.
Usually that's the best way to go.
Unless you just want it spoiled for you.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are plenty of times where we do a non-spoiler segment and then spoilers.
Yeah.
But
I heard this one time, I got to throw this in. Roger Ebert had a comment where he said that when he writes a review, he knows only 10% of the people who read his review will actually go and see that movie, regardless of what he says. So he's like, I have to make my reviews entertaining. So if you're here for the entertainment purposes of our show,
you're at the
You're
wrong
here.
show.
Right, yeah,
wrong
you'll be
show.
disappointed.
Wrong show.
We're
Absolutely.
pretty entertaining, I would say. At least me.
Yeah,
I'm my own best friend.
Yeah. But so let's start off with initial reviews or initial thoughts on Miss Marvel. We'll go on a happy note first to Rob.
You think it's going to be happy for me. Why do you think that?
Because it's a Marvel show and you're a big Miss Marvel fan.
Okay, so initial thoughts. I love what they did with the character. I love how they introduced her. I think it was one of the most perfectly cast shows that we've had on the Disney Plus series shows. And that's saying something because it's an all-new cast completely. Being very familiar with the comics, she's very accurate, and the show was very accurate towards the comics. It was very faithful in a lot of respects. I love the little call-outs and shout-outs that a lot of people probably didn't even notice if you weren't a fan of the comics. Excuse me. I thought it was all, though, having said that, and I love, I think it's one of the few Marvel shows that have actually gotten all the cultural aspects correct. Like Moon Knight started to do that, but then they kind of fell away from it. This one feels like it was made by the people who understand and appreciate these traditions, which was really, really cool. So at the same time, it was completely foreign, but totally familiar when you're watching it because you feel so comfortable with it. Having said all that, and having said that, I love that they also kept the stakes small. It was not a perfect show. I thought it was very tonally uneven throughout. Like the first, second, and last episode were like my favorite episodes, and those fit together really well, whereas the middle three episodes kind of were a little all over the place, a little wonky. Sometimes they departed from the initial tone of the show. But overall, I did enjoy the show, and I thought it was a good time. I was glad I watched it.
Ronnie?
It was pretty interesting of a show. I like the concept. Like you said, the characters were very well written and done, but there was like nothing to it. It was basically just a show about this fangirl, and that was it. This was a show that I was kind of finding myself as I'm watching it, going on my phone and like playing a game while watching it. Like, it did not keep and grab my attention for the whole 35 to 50 minutes of, runtime for the show and everything. It was lacking something. I think it was, I don't know what exactly was lacking, but if the fact that it couldn't keep my attention it is what kind of like brought it down for me. There was parts, like I said, I was like, oh, my phone went off. And then I got distracted on my phone and just listened to the show instead of watching the show.
Now, I remember when the trailer first came out, you were like not interested at all.
Yeah.
Were you still not interested for those same reasons?
I think so. I think it was just, again,
I remember you saying something about, you're like, it looks just so, I'm not into teen angst. I think it was your comment.
Yeah, it was too teeny for me. I don't know. Maybe I just made that a descriptive word right there. But
I did write about in my reviews that there were a lot of times it felt like those Disney shows like Sweet Life of Zach and Cody.
Yeah,
and
I was watching old school Disney from when I was like a kid / teenager.
Yeah,
watching Disney is basically what this was. Which I mean, like, apparently it worked because depending on where you look, people have really loved the show, but. I don't know, it's just, it was so much just teen drama, and I'm not here for teen drama. Right. I'm here for drama, yes, and obviously, like, when it comes to superhero action and stuff like that, I'll go into the little detail later, but I did not like the effects in this either.
Her powers in particular, or
any of the effects?
Really? I thought the effects didn't really come together until the last episode. Up until that point, I thought they were, like, really, like, Adobe Photoshop kind of. They were pretty bad.
Yeah.
So for me, I was not particularly excited for this show just because I don't like Carol Danvers and I don't like Captain Marvel. And that is nothing against Brie Larson in particular. I just don't find her character that interesting. And like if you look at the pantheon of Marvel superhero movies, Captain Marvel is never one that I'm going to be like, I'm going to watch this right now. Like, to the point where it felt like they had to write her out of Endgame because they made her just so powerful, which I don't care. Like, you can write powerful characters. It's always a little bit trickier. A lot of writers hate writing for Superman just because they find him difficult to write. How do you create conflict with something that can't be hurt? But I found it very interesting. So one thing I love about this show is the fact Ant-Man has a podcast.
Yeah.
And that's how all the information... Like, nobody should know who Carol Danvers is.
Right.
Like, there's no reason to, because she disappeared after Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
And then she came back, and then obviously during the 5-year transition, we don't know what happened during the blip. We don't know if Kamala Khan was blipped. We don't know anything like that. I don't think she was. She's still young. But... it's interesting because they did all that stuff with the blip during Hawkeye with Yelena. I was hoping for a little bit more with that. But there's no reason really that people should know who Carol Danvers is, much less have such a big fan base around her. It was interesting just in terms of them, with the Avengers Con and all that stuff, because that's how it would be in real life.
Yeah.
But for me, I was not too excited. I really like the actress who plays Kamala. She's very likable. She's very just quirky and fun. And relatable, especially like to us who are basically man children and sitting in my basement doing a podcast about superhero things. But I was kind of apprehensive still about it. And even like the trailers, I like the kind of Scott Pilgrim-y look and vibe. But it's like Rob said, the middle 3 episodes or like the middle set of episodes, that's all gone.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, they tackle some pretty serious stuff with a partition and all that stuff. But like... I was watching the show for like the fun, bubbly, and I liked how it was a different style that Marvel was used to. And then they disappeared, and then it came back for the very end, just so that she could have a fight with somebody with nearly identical powers, just with the color difference. Typical superhero, not even Marvel trope, but typical superhero trope at this point. But
I wonder too if, because this almost sounds like a lot of the same comments that you and I had when we were talking about Moon Knight. That like the first 2 episodes were like really strong, and then it sagged a lot in the middle, and then it kind of came back at the end. And I wonder if Marvel is sticking too closely to that 6-episode structure and finding the same beats in all their shows. So it'll be interesting to see where She-Hulk goes, because that's a 9-episode series. I know none of us are looking forward to She-Hulk. The only thing
we're looking forward to is the fact that Daredevil and Kingpin are both going to be in it.
Yes.
No, they're in Echo.
Oh, Echo, excuse me.
they're
Yeah,
in
that's
Echo.
right. Supposedly Daredevil's going to cameo, though.
Oh, really?
As Matt,
Yeah.
it's a,
It makes sense.
lawyer dramedy. But yeah, this was just very strange. So those were our initial thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to break down full spoilers, plot, characters, things we like, things we didn't like, and much, much more. But first, a quick break. Today's episode is brought to you by Raise Energy Drinks from Rep Sports. Whether you're trying to crush your afternoon workout or just need a little extra pick-me-up, Raise Energy is just the boost that you're going to need. So if you go to repsports.com and any product that you order, enter the code MISFIT89 at checkout to receive 15% off. Anything that you guys buy from that store helps our network grow, and we fully appreciate everything you guys do. That's MISFIT89 at checkout, repsports.com. All right, we are back, and it is time for us to break down Miss Marvel. Character, story, plot, things Rob liked more than us, things Ronnie hated, and then there's just me, who's just here for a good time, and because they use my house to podcast. So, let's start off. We're going to go character by character, because usually when we do character by character, we also hit all the story beats. Let's start with, I really hope I don't mess up her name, because I hope she's not listening. She's so adorable. Iman Vellani?
Iman Vellani.
Yes. As Kamala Khan / Miss Marvel. Yes. So, first acting role ever.
Yeah.
And
That's amazing.
She is one of the highlights of this show.
She is so charismatic and so just spunky.
Which makes me really worried about how she's going to act with Carol Danvers.
Yeah, I got to say, I had feelings about that too. I hope she blends in well and doesn't lose any of who she is.
Because Carol Danvers is not a very fun character.
But do remember this, that she and Spider-Man had good scenes together, even though it was brief.
One
Yeah.
half second. 1/2
Still
second.
counts.
No, it doesn't count. Does not count. It was just the tip. Doesn't count. But anyway, I know. So it's fine. I'm just gonna edit it out
in post.
Yeah, edit it in post. So I really do enjoy her, and I enjoy her character. She's very much. We don't get a chance to really see the fans of the MCU, like because in this world, you know, we're gonna do our episode on the boys like literally right after this, which is almost the exact opposite, where we're not supposed to like the superheroes, just as audience members watching the boys. So for this, it's kind of the opposite, where it's like look at cool superpowers. They do take a lot of liberties though with the characters' origins and powers.
I did have problems with that because in the comics, she is
An Inhuman.
an Inhuman who's exposed to a Terrigen
Mist.
Terrigen, is that how you say it? Terrigen mist.
Don't you remember the Marvel Inhuman show? And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Well, and that's the problem is that, and I wrote about this too, that
Kevin Feige hates the Inhumans.
the Inhumans in the comics, she runs into like Medusa. She has like a whole series of adventures with Lockjaw, and the Inhumans are like the basis. So like Kevin Feige clearly, and that's the problem is, and we've said this before, that the Inhumans was supposed to be the foundation of so many shows in the MCU, and when it bombed so terribly and it's so absolutely reviled, they kind of decided, well, we need to go a different direction. So they threw in the, what are they called again? The Clandestines. The Clandestines are a very brief group that's mentioned in the comics, but they decided to sub in Clandestines for Inhumans, which I think it kind of worked, and also kind of sub in mutants.
They do mention for the very first time mutation.
And they say mutation, not mutant, which is like
Interesting.
close.
Which means, well, I mean, technically that means she's a mutant. If she's got mutations.
Well, so it's very vague, and I'm not sure if it's because they're setting it up for another season or just for the Marvels. Yeah. But basically, when
they even played the X-Men theme.
Oh yeah,
when they said mutation,
which is nice fan service, but as we learned from Multiverse of Madness,
doesn't mean anything.
We don't necessarily need it. Like they even reintroduced Black Bolt in that.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks because they do exist in the MCU. They are still considered canon to the MCU. So basically, for those of you guys who don't know, a few years ago when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. first came out, they also wanted to do an Inhumans movie, and they started filming it in IMAX. Mm-hmm. But then they decided they wanted to make it into another ABC show, just like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was. Because the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is clearly in continuity with the MCU.
Yeah, there's mentions there's tie-ins to Thor Dark World.
There's literally Captain America and the Winter Soldier changed the entire show for the better, too. Like that show, the second half of the first season was really good after you find out that Hydra's been in S.H.I.E.L.D. this whole time. But like Rob said, the Inhumans came out and it was horrific.
Yeah.
It was so bad, nearly unwatchable.
Have you watched all of it?
I watched all of it.
Yeah, me too. Did you see it?
No.
Any of it?
No.
Don't ever.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not going to.
So it's on Disney Plus. It is so boring.
I would do a live video of you watching the first episode. That'd be a lot of fun, actually.
It's
so
not
bad.
so much. It's not so much that it's just sticking with it for all the episodes, knowing it's not going anywhere, and this is just a terrible show.
It's funny because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. went on for like 5-6 seasons, and it was some of it was really good. Like the Ghost Rider stuff was fantastic. So it's no surprise that they wanted to get away from it and not have that taste, because MCU fans don't forget, as we tend to call Marvel out on, but in this continuity there's this mistake. But I didn't like her powers. I really did. I would have liked her powers.
The origin of it?
The origin and also the execution of them. It was almost like, it was very Green Lantern-ish. I would have had no problem if it was just, like at the end when she embiggens for the first time, I would have had no problem if that was her power the entire time. If literally it was just her creating the constructs as... Because in the comics, she's basically Ant-Man and Mr. Fantastic combined. She's able to... She's a shapeshifter, as the technical term. So...
It was a little convoluted, like, because she's a mutant, but she's also a djinn, but she's got the bangle, and it was like, well, which is it, and what's...
All the above.
Yeah, like, I felt like they went too far all in on all those things, that they should have just picked, like... 2 out of 3. Even if they did 2 out of 3, I think it would have been okay. But to have all 3, but I guess you needed the bangle, because the bangle at the end makes her zip out with Captain Marvel, and they also had her go back in time because of the bangle, and then the mutation, like it was too plot driven, her origin stuff.
And with the bangle too, it was confusing because it's like, is that where she gets her power from?
Yeah.
But then it's also, but we need the bangle to open up a portal. But what?
Yeah, it felt like
so
there were
confused.
things that were shoehorned in there.
I would have been okay if the bangle had released Terrigen Mist when she put it on, and that had transformed her. And she still could have been an Inhuman, and then, then you could have still used the bangle for like, that was a defense mechanism, but this is what it's really used for.
Yeah.
Like they could, because the Terrigen Mist in the comics, if you're not an Inhuman, you get exposed to it, I think you die. Like, which sucks.
Yeah.
As for her powers, I can understand some of that too, because I don't know why they introduced the light thing. I think just so that way she could fight Cameron.
I think it's because flexibility powers are very hard to do.
See, I have to say, I like physically in the 6th episode what they did with her powers with the embiggening stuff, where it was sort of like a glowy, like like that actually kind of worked for me, because I agreed. Yeah, stretchy stuff looks weird when you try and do it. There's an uncanny valley there for it.
It's bad.
Yeah, so I did like the embiggening. I don't understand why they did the light stuff so much though, because that's not comic accurate. But maybe there's a bigger plan at play here.
I hope not. But any other thoughts on Kamala Khan?
No, again, I think for someone's first acting job, she did a great job. She made the character a lot more relatable, which we don't really get with Carol Danvers' character. So, again, it was good. I'm just not one for teen drama and love triangles and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, speaking of love triangles, our next character, Matt Linz as Bruno.
Oh, Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno.
No, we got to talk about Bruno.
We have to
We
talk
gotta
about
talk
the rules.
Or Brian has.
Yeah, Brian.
That was one of my favorite moments in the entire show, where he's like, I legitimately thought your name was Brian this whole time. I'm so sorry. Like, because at first you just think Cameron's just being a douche.
Yeah.
But Bruno. So Bruno is the superhero trope now.
He's the Shuri.
The guy in the chair.
The guy in the chair.
He's the Felicity from Arrow. He's the Ned from Spider-Man. Like, he's the sidekick. And he's the one that has to help her figure out how her new powers work, and has an unrequited crush on her. And
I'm glad that was
ridiculously smart.
I'm so glad that was unrequited too. I'm glad that it remained platonic. Like, I actually have to say, there was like, you mentioned love triangle, but it was sort of like an unrequited love triangle, because nobody actually kisses here, do they?
Yeah.
Like, her and Cameron start to, and then he interrupts them at the end.
Yeah.
So there's no like kiss, like, and I kind of liked that there was no real romance. There was latent romance, but not really.
But like, you knew it was there,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like look at this, look at this, look at this.
Thank goodness.
Thank God.
Bruno was, he was so good. He was so sweet.
Have you noticed that intelligence in the MCU is way higher than in real life? Like, everybody's very smart.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bruno he's the tech guy, and he's also the secret keeper. He fits a lot of like the check marks, the, like we said, the unrequited crush and all that stuff. But he was also fun and interesting and very loyal.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Bruno that we want to bring
I
up?
loved his dance sequence at the wedding.
Oh yeah. He
Or
dives
what about in the last episode?
What about
He's got a dance sequence.
where?
when he gets tackled.
Oh, right, when he gets tackled.
Come on, let's dance.
He was cute and sweet. He I have to say, like, and from all of us having worked with teenagers, I'm curious as to how you feel. I thought all the teenagers were very authentically teenage.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Like that's actually how teenagers are
with
nowadays.
one exception. I'm gonna say
next character?
Nakia is the exception.
Oh,
I'll agree. She seemed to be more like an adult.
I
feel like.
could name 5 kids off the top of my head right now that are just like her.
My only issue, like, I liked Nakia, and she was a good foil for
Yeah.
Kamala, and obviously they got over their drama very quickly with the whole "you didn't tell me you had superpowers" thing.
Yeah.
You were Nightlight this whole time.
That's what teenagers do, is they hold a grudge for like
14
14 seconds.
I don't know. Girls will hold it for years.
Yeah.
Girls still remember things that happened in high school.
I actually do know girls like Nakia, and they're all in the top 10
My only
of the class.
my issue with Nakia is very simply I know better than all the adults in the room, and then I get my way, and I prove that I know better than all the adults in the room. Like, that's not, no 17-year-old really knows. Like, she's running the mosque at the end of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very common teenager trope where the children know better than the adults, and
Not better than the Sheik, though.
yeah.
I gotta say, he's pretty accurate from the comics too, like the way he's handled. Like I think the two of them have a good relationship, Nakia and the Sheik.
Yeah,
of the
but
mosque.
for me, it just that always annoys me, especially because now we're all older, we all work with kids, and the idea that a 16-year-old is now going to tell me what I'm supposed to be doing and doing it right, that's just not how it happens,
Right.
and it's unrealistic. That may just be because it's so centered on stuff that we do. That'd be like, Rob's a teacher, a 16-year-old being like, "You're teaching this wrong," and then getting up in front of the class.
Yeah, because I don't hear that every day of my.
I know, but what happens?
I do. Like,
Does that kid become the teacher at the end of the school year?
I know, but they do have good suggestions for me if I'm listening to their criticism. Like,
Which is fine, but like I'm saying, like, this kid who criticizes you in your classroom then takes over the class at the end of the school year.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just I get what they were doing, and she's a very good character otherwise, but that's a very teenage drama movie TV cliche.
One thing that I did like, now that you've mentioned those three, Bruno, Nakia, and Vellani's character, Kamala, thank you.
The main character.
Sorry. Age, words just don't come to you. I really, and this was, I noticed, was the major theme of the show, was finding identity and finding your identity in the people around you. And I love that each of the three of them do find who they are throughout the course, like, of the show. Like, I really felt like there were a lot of good character arcs that really played throughout the whole show. And a lot of it was seen in those three people, but especially in Kamala, Kamala or Kamala? I guess it's both depending upon who you ask on the show. Kamala. Okay. Because her mother and grandmother say it slightly
You don't
different.
just say Miss Marvel.
Ms. Marvel. Obviously, she's the biggest arc with her identity, and it's so beautifully done with her outfit too. That you've got the red dagger scarf, you've got the Z on her shirt, the lightning bolt, which is a broken part of her necklace. You've got, the outfit from Pakistan. Like, it's so neat to see, like, because the message there is you are who you are based on the people that raise you and influence you. And I thought that was so nicely seen in those three characters.
So let's talk about the Khan family then, because we do get introduced to, we're just going to say mom, dad, and brother Khan. Just
Yusuf, and Amir.
I was just trying to make it easy for
Ami. I just call her Ami.
So the Khan parents, nothing broke my heart harder than when she, like, hurt her dad's feelings in, like, that first episode or
with
two.
the
Like,
Hulk?
my God. Like, I'm sitting there with producer Melanie. For those of you guys who don't know, producer Melanie's my wife. But, like,
She is?
yeah, sometimes.
I thought she was Ronnie's wife.
No.
Oh, wait, that's
Yeah.
your wife is Lauren. No,
Yes.
wait, that's my wife.
Oh,
Sorry.
yes, you're
Jack.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Dad jokes all over. But I remember watching it going, man, if our kid ever did something like that to me, like, I don't know if I'd recover. Like, he took it in stride too. And, you know, you guys are both parents, and
I don't know if either of us though would ever do that to our kid, where we'd say, "Let's dress up to," like, not as as being serious. We would do it as a joke or something.
Oh yes,
like that.
as a joke. I could see yours being like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like maybe a couple years ago,
Yeah.
or whatever. But now, like for me, not a shot in where.
Yeah, I'll do things like, I'll, like Timmy will be wearing something and I'll go and change and wear the same thing. I'm like, come on, we'll go out, we'll be twins and everything, like, because I know it's ridiculous.
Yes.
But,
we'll do it as a joke.
But like, you guys imagine taking like such an interest in your child's interests and like really going all out, and she's like, "You're embarrassing me. Get out."
Yeah.
Like it was rough. It was very rough to watch.
And I love that seems to be another theme of the whole show, was that sort of generational misunderstanding of no generation understands the next generation, and we all work to sort of reconcile that over time. And you saw that with Ami and her, with the grandmother and everything. I will tell you right now, Kamala's mother, best new character in the MCU.
Really?
I love Ami. Everything she did and said just completely stole every scene she was in. I laughed at everything she said. Just like when she was shouting about the Find My iPhone, she's like, how am I just hearing about this for the first time?
You know her name's Muniba, right?
I call her Ami because that's what Kamala calls her.
Oh, I thought you were getting confused with Amir.
No.
Oh man, I can't keep track.
Ami is the motherly name that she calls her.
Yeah. But I found her interesting. I do like how she does go through her character growth, and she's the one that presents the costume. Again, you're checking off a lot of the boxes, but I thought the entire family dynamic was really good and really well done. Yeah. And then obviously you got the brother Amir, who is supposedly very different in the comics. I don't know.
remember him from the comics, to be honest.
I heard he's kind of a jerk in the comics.
Yes, he is. He's very, like what you saw when you first introduced him, when he was praying at the table there, and they're like, "Come on," that's him static through the comics. Like he's very religious. Like very religious, very self-righteous, and very like rule following. Yeah, I do remember that now.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Khan family?
Oh, no. I just love mom and dad.
I was going to say that, like you said, the whole dynamic and the culture that they brought and, is shown throughout, the whole entire show is great. I think, they both played their parts in making Kamala's story grow and giving her that character arc in the show. So great job. Again, Amir was just there though, didn't really add or take anything away.
I was surprised to
with the
see
brother.
him at the end there with being such an active part
it was
of the
so
plot.
funny though. Like, what are you doing here? I went to the school too.
Yeah, he just shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes I find that funnier.
Yeah.
The simplest explanations. Like, they all just broke in. We're supposed to be shocked.
I will say that watching the parents and the whole family actually made me want to be Pakistani. Like, their cultures and traditions and their festivals and everything, and the wedding looked so much fun.
Well, that's why I liked Bruno. Like, Bruno, he literally jumps into the culture, and they accept him so readily. There's no, like, every once in a while they'll have to explain things to him, but you can tell he's been around for so long. Yeah. So I do enjoy that aspect too. It's always nice to see other cultures, especially like big celebrations like weddings or fairs and all that stuff. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. Now let's talk about less fun. Kamran and his family.
In my reviews I call her Cam Mom.
Kamran and the Jinn, basically. It sounds like a boy band.
And the Despicables or whatever they're called.
Clandestines. How many secret societies of like other beings live in Marvel that we just don't know about? I do like how they did mention the Eternals.
Yes, there was a mention of what's his name as a star of Bollywood.
Yeah, I know.
Kamal Johnny's character.
And they all have crushes on him because he's the same person.
Yeah.
But the Clandestines, obviously in place for the Inhumans, which we mentioned, they were there. Very, very generic, like, we want to go home, but it'll destroy this world. We don't care. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wrapped that up quick, though. Yeah,
at the end of the 5th episode, it was wrapped up. I was like, where are they going with
I was like, who's the bad guy then?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, Kamran gets the exact same powers as Kamala.
Cameron's from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. Imagine Cameron from Ferris Bueller with those powers. He wouldn't even get out of bed. He'd just make another bed. But Kamran gets the same powers as Kamala, and I do like how they do reconcile, and they don't get together as a couple, and he actually does go, and the Red Daggers do protect him.
Yeah.
There is some comic accuracy going on there, because in the comics, Kamran is an Inhuman. He does have powers. He doesn't get them from his mother. He's always had them. And when he introduces, it's not his mother, he introduces her to like a group, I forget what they're called, but it's another group where they're like very like extremist Inhumans. So it kind of tracks. They're just called different things in the comics. But I mean, I get it. The clandestines were in there as, first of all, as a substitute for the Inhumans, but also as like, you had to bring in her past. You had to bring in the great grandmother and the whole idea of generational traditions and your identity being passed on from generations ago. It works, but it just seemed like another movie shoved inside my movie,
which was another issue. I forget what show it was, but there was another one that somebody said the exact same thing, where it was like this show is being put into something else.
Yeah.
What was the show that we just did? It wasn't The Boys.
Was it Moon Knight?
Maybe it was Moon Knight. I don't know.
Umbrella Academy.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of shows that we just
What
did.
are some of them other shows we got?
I know we got so many shows at this point, but I agree. I feel like there was another story that needed to be told.
Yeah.
And just that they put it together with this.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what it was? It was Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Where the Inquisitor
Yes.
stuff, but similar kind of thing. That's the problem with these. As much as I like like The Boys did 8 episodes, and they did it just fine. Like I had no issues with the pacing of The Boys. This show, a little bit of issue with the pacing and especially the middle sequence, and Moon Knight suffered the same thing. So maybe they need to because obviously it feels like they're also putting less and less budget in these shows.
I feel like this one they saved the budget for the last episode,
which is not always the best choice.
And it wasn't even that good.
It was okay. Well, what was not good about it?
The effects throughout the entire show.
Yes.
Yeah, I know you guys were like, oh, the embiggening stuff. I thought it was still horrendous.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
I you know what? I can understand, and I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Yeah.
I felt that the fighting choreography was horrible up until the last episode. The last episode was at least better because they figured out how to do it like almost kind of like Home Alone-ish.
Yeah.
But like I don't know if you remember the fight scene at the wedding in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It was like
That was rough.
that was how you couldn't tell who was who, where they were, and how a teenager, suddenly learned how to hold off ninjas.
Yeah, right?
It didn't make any sense.
That's why I would have had no problem with her just basically creating the energy around her as an embiggening instead of her, I'm going to throw this disc and it's going to appear over there. And then like that was way too much. And I just think it would have been sometimes simple is better.
Yeah. For me, the show started to go wrong mid-third episode after the wedding when the clandestines came in and attacked, and I'm like, oh no. And then it just kept going bad from there. Like 4th and 5th episodes were all about like, okay, don't get me wrong, I love the part. Did you know anything about the partition before this show?
No. It reminds me of Watchmen when they do the Tulsa event.
That's exactly what I wrote about. Yeah. Absolutely. And I love that they used it because the partition was like, it was like 2 million people were massacred in this thing. It was horrible. And I didn't know.
This was the Disney version though.
Yeah. And I didn't know. And I love that they used the original news footage though too at the beginning.
Yeah.
And like even my wife, who is a history teacher, she's certified teaching social studies and has a full history education. She's like, I knew nothing about this. She's like, this is a footnote in American textbooks. And so it was great to see that, but it just felt like a totally different show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we also have Karim as the Red Dagger.
Yes.
I really liked Karim, and I liked how there was zero sexual tension. There was not like it would have been really easy for them to introduce, another good-looking kid, and Kamala's like, but no, he was like.
I'm hoping we get the adventures of Karim and Kamala.
I'd watch that show.
Yeah.
I'd watch
that. Could be cool.
I'd even watch a Red Dagger show because that was some of the better fight choreography with him and the mentor guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but Waleed.
He is a major Bollywood star.
Really?
That guy.
I didn't know that.
They took like huge people that were big stars in India and Pakistan and cast them in the show so that way they could be popular over there too. Like, and when these people showed up, I guarantee Indian audiences and Pakistani audiences were like going crazy because they're huge.
But they were a fun addition, and I like a good secret society to begin with, but also I like a secret society that actually makes sense. Yeah. And I do like how they make the comment about, if Thor had landed in India, he'd be called a Jinn too. Yeah. Those sort of things always make sense, especially with Thor: Love and Thunder, with all the other gods being involved, and also Moon Knight with the other gods being involved. Unfortunately, like when Thor first came out, they were like, Thor's just an alien. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
We just worshipped him as otherwise. So it's interesting that they're doing different things. Like the clandestines come from another dimension that inhabits the same space.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see, again, that could have been a really nice Multiverse of Madness tie-in, but it wasn't. So I feel like Marvel Phase 4 is just so big at this point that they
got to tie some things together.
I feel like nothing has any ramifications on anything else.
No.
Like you watch, if you watch the original Phase 1 of the Avengers, it all led to the Avengers. Right. It all made sense. Yes. Like things that happened in these movies to the point where critics didn't like it. They were like, it's just setting up for the next movie. Age of Ultron was famous for it. Yeah. Where it was more just a setup for the rest of the Infinity Saga. But now we're so used to it that now that it's not happening, we're kind of like, I kind of miss it.
Yeah.
But those are the main characters. There are other characters like Zoe who's really just
Zoe is bigger in the comics.
I can imagine.
I feel like there's a lot of Zoe footage on the cutting room floor for this show.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, because she, like, all of a sudden she just shows up in the 6th episode,
and she knows that Kamala is the one who saved her. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah, so I think we're missing something there.
Mm-hmm. Now let's jump into some final thoughts on the episode. We'll do our Star City ratings at the end, but final thoughts just in general. We'll go with Ronnie first because he's already making a face.
Was I the only one that loved Najaf?
Who was that?
The halal food.
The vendor, the food vendor.
No, he was funny. Yeah.
I think like other than like obviously like your main stars, I think he might have been like my favorite character that we had there. But I mean, overall, it did its job. It led up to the Marvel movie coming up. But what I'm confused about is Carol Danvers. This is the 4th time we've seen her and the 4th haircut we've had.
And different outfit.
Okay, I read a fan theory about the haircut.
Okay.
Because Monica Rambeau has cancer and dies in that 5-year period of the blip.
Okay.
And the fan theory is that to support her, she shaved her head.
And now it's growing back.
So that's why when we saw it short, it was like after Monica Rambeau had died, maybe about 6 months later, and now it's been growing back, and now we're back at full length.
It's going to be very interesting to see, though, the 3 of them. It's going to be Maria Rambeau, Carol Danvers, and Kamala Khan all in one movie. That's a lot to tackle. Yeah. And we saw what happened. See, this is what I'm worried about. Sorry to cut you off, Ronnie. I know you were in the middle of your thoughts.
Yeah, it's whatever.
For the Marvels, we had such great character development for Wanda in WandaVision that feels like it kind of got thrown out for Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
We have 2 characters that were introduced on Disney Plus shows. Maria Rambeau and, well, even though she was in...
Maria or Monica?
I don't know. You said Monica for the other one, so I switched it up. There's the mom and then there's the daughter.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
The one who's got photon powers now. And obviously Kamala Khan. So you're putting the 2 of them from Disney Plus shows into a movie with Carol Danvers, who is not the most liked character in the MCU. And that's not just me saying it. That is a general consensus, unfortunately. And a lot of people tend to forget that Thor was going through spaceships too, all right?
Yes.
Because everybody talks about how powerful Carol Danvers is when she goes through the spaceship. Yes. Thor was doing it the previous movie. Calm down. But I still want to see that fight. Yeah. That would be a fun fight. I know. Didn't we get it in What If, the 2 of them? Thor.
Yeah, they did have something like that.
But I'm very apprehensive is the better term, I guess, for because this show is better than I expected. But
okay, good.
Yeah, not to cut off anybody's final thoughts, Ronnie. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I freaking thought.
So anyway, go back. Carol Danvers' haircut.
Yeah. So that's the only like real tie-in we have with anything in the MCU, other than Avenger Con, but that's really nothing. Just Avenger mentioning the name. But yeah, there's no other tie-in to the blip, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, anything like that. It would have been nice to have some sort of connection because Jersey City's just right across the river. It's not that far away from New York City where you have all these different superheroes and action happening over there. And then like I've been saying, just The effects in this show were terrible. Nothing looked good. There wasn't even a moment to me that it looked good. When, she embiggened, like that to me looked worse than all the other stuff.
Do you guys remember the Disney show Lab Rats?
Vaguely.
Like,
Yeah.
It was a superhero show, but it was like the Disney lineup. It had effects that were similar to Lab Rats.
Rough.
Yeah. So, I mean, it just fell flat. The story, like every issue, every problem seemed to get solved right away in this. The terrible fight scenes, like we talked about. It just, I was expecting a little bit more than what we got.
Okay. Do you want to do your Star City rating?
I'm teetering between a 2.5 and a 3. It's around like average, first episode, last episode were like the only 2 episodes that I was actually engaged in. 2, 3, 4, 5. Just I don't know. It was just nothing was really there for me.
Well, especially because in the 4th episode they completely. Oh no! 5th episode, Kamala Khan wasn't even really in the episode.
Yeah.
It was all about her grandparents'
it was
romance,
like a flashback and stuff.
Was cool.
Oh yeah,
but it's I don't expect to see that in my Ms. Marvel show.
And it's just weird too to me that Kamran's mom flipped a switch like this to be a good guy. And then, and then he flipped a switch to be a bad guy because his mom
We didn't even talk about damage control.
died.
Yeah, Department of Damage.
That was
Actually, I will give it its kudos. The ending scene where everybody turns against her and like the cops stand in the way.
I knew you were going to cite
Like, no,
that.
it was-
as soon as I saw that happen in the show, I'm like, Paul's going to mention this.
Well, because it would have been very easy, given today's climate and situation. It would have been very easy. They did teeter the line.
Yeah.
They were respectful to both sides of that line.
agree with-
and I did enjoy that, like the fact that the lady who was from Damage Control, she wasn't a bad person. She
was just overzealous.
her mindset was, there's a teenager with superpowers, like that's not safe for anyone, and she was just kind of a jerk about it. But she wasn't like and there's no real, like, the clandestines were the bad guys, but they were, Damage Control was the conflict at the end. So Rob, final thoughts and Star City rating?
I love the show. Even with its flaws and faults, I thought she was wonderful. She was the best find I think we've had in a long time. I love how they introduced so many great things in the show. Sheik, his line, which is such a great line, where he says to her, and it's her mantra, it's her "with great power comes great responsibility" line, where he says, "Good is not a thing you are; it's a thing you do," which is such I love how they introduced it. I love how all the characters were very faithful to their roots. I love the cultural and traditional aspects to it. It was flawed. It was tonally sort of, that middle section sagged a lot for me. I think if that middle section was its own show, that might have been fine. Or, because I wrote about this a lot. My complaint was that all of the fun animation and that sort of ADD teenage approach to the show kind of was in the first and second episode, and then it kind of just dropped off completely, and then it came back in the 6th episode. So I think they saved a lot with that final episode. Overall, I want to give it 4 stars, but I can't, just because it was so tonally inconsistent. So I will say like 3 3/4, because I think it is a really solid show. I think the characters were amazing. I learned a lot from the show too, in terms of traditions and history. And I think even though they were weirdly inserted, the great grandparents, I thought it was such a beautiful romance between the two of them. Like, it was the stuff of 1950s, 1960s epic films like Lawrence of Arabia and all these like huge epics that span like historical time periods and everything. So 3 3/4.
All right, I'm going to give it a solid 3. And it is not because of the show. It is not because of the plot. It's because of the characters and the culture. And the actors who portray the characters do a fantastic job. Each of them had something relatable and enjoyable about them. I do agree with Ronnie. The effects left a lot to be desired. I agree with Rob. The tone shifted hard and then it tried to shift back. And just, it was jarring. Overall, though, this was not a show that was driven by the plot. I was more engaged with the characters, so I'm gonna give it a solid 3. I would like to see more Kamala Khan. I'd like to see her interact with some of the other superheroes. I want to see if she's gonna what the fangirl is gonna do with are there Avengers? Which is weird because they have Avengers Con, but it's been established, like, are there still Avengers? Like, nobody knows what's going on. And that's unfortunately kind of the mantra of the MCU at this point.
I got a question for you guys. I felt that one of the positive things of this show was the fact that the stakes were not terribly high, that it was all Jersey City. And I know we liked that a lot with Hawkeye, that the stakes were all about him getting home for Christmas. Did you think that worked in? I feel like it worked in favor of the show. Do you think it worked for it or against it?
I think it works for it with the character on their first down. Like Spider-Man Homecoming, very similar, very small stakes, and that was the point. Like at the end, he's like, I just want to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Yeah. So I think coming of age stories should be very small, and the Disney Plus shows do better when they're small stakes. Yeah. As much as we love the giant monster fight in Moon Knight at the end. To a point, like it was just visually, it was just fantastic.
It doesn't need to be world changing.
It doesn't always have to be, and sometimes a good story is really what's more important.
I agree. That was it was
you
weird.
You mentioned there was something missing. Was that missing for you?
See,
Ronnie does like stakes.
It was small stakes, but it also seemed like a big one when they were talking about the portal, and Kamala's like, she's gonna ruin everything. Yeah. Like it's all gonna this world is gonna take over, basically, is like the way she made it seem like. But in our eyes, it was like they're just trying to go home. Yeah, they're trying to find their way home.
But if they go home, they could erase this world.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was like, in a way, it was big stakes,
but ended with small stakes.
Yeah. And I like big stakes.
Stakes.
I will say too, as someone, even though I know it wasn't shot in New Jersey, as someone from New Jersey, very authentic.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap us up for today. Don't forget, if you guys want to give us your thoughts or find out more about our shows, about us, you can go to our website, themisfitfaction.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Multiverse Fan Cast, Misfit Faction. Basically, if you type in Misfit Faction social media, you'll find us. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, our website. Odds are you'll find us somewhere. So that's going to wrap us up as always. I'm Paul.
I'm Ronnie.
And I'm Rob.
And we'll be back in a flash.
Marcus Park.
See ya.